Episode 2 of the Hard Knocks with the New York Giants drop, man. And we got some things to cover about it. Probably, there's only 2 episodes out, but this is the better one in my opinion. You've seen them go at the combine, talk to quarterbacks, talk to different players, talk to our guy Malik Neighbors, and also you've seen some more stuff about Saquon Barkley. And once again, man, we know when it comes to Saquon Barkley, it's a very touchy subject. And now, once we were kind of putting it to rest and kind of moving past it, this is going to unload just a bunch of more, hurt that possibly went on or even hurt that we're going to see between the fan base. But first thing we're going to be touching on, man, is Dayball with the QBs, man. This is a different side of football that we haven't seen. Let's be honest. Hard Knocks, once again, is normally, doing their preseason filming, but this time it happens to be with the front office for the New York Giants. If you didn't know that, now you know. But for the fan perspective, right, seeing their interviews with these players is something that you don't necessarily see when they talk about the X's and O's. You saw Brian Daboll questioning guys like Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams, and Drake May. You saw him questioning those quarterbacks, having them recite some plays to them, and go ahead and asking them questions on it overall. And that's really intriguing to see. They kind of blew up Jaden Daniels' situation, saying that Jaden Daniels didn't look too sharp. Jaden Daniels is a commander, though, so if he's slow to process, I'll ride that coattails of that until then. But at the time being, man, once again, just seeing Dayball interact with those QBs and seeing his questioning and also, once again, the X's and O's. Nobody here probably can recite the plays that the quarterbacks were having to recite anyways, So it was very intriguing to see that. And once again, it just showed the attention to detail they were putting in on these QBs. Now, most likely to do this on a year in, year out basis, so I'm not going to put too much stock into it and tell you that these interviews really show that they were trying to select one of those QBs. I'm not going to say that. But, we heard the steam and the rumblings when it came to Drake May and possibly the other QBs. We heard that the Giants possibly wanted a QB, and you've seen it during the episode. Joe Shane, once he was up there at the combine, he was already talking about going to slide over to the Patriots side and see what they want to do at 3 and kind of just, plant a seed. He specifically said plant a seed with the Patriots. And as we know, all of this is with hindsight. The Patriots didn't trade away their pick, but they did entertain the idea with the Giants, and it shows that those rumors were true. A lot of people didn't know, and a lot of people didn't think that the Giants were actually trying to trade up. And, once again, man, I love our fan base. Our fan base remains to be split on a lot of things, as other fan bases do. But a lot of people were split on the fact that, no, they were not trying to trade up for a QB. They were trying to trade up for Joe Alt. I heard reports of that, which was crazy. But not only that, they were just pretty much saying that they're riding with Daniel Jones. They're not trying to select a QB. Them trying to trade up to 3 says otherwise, for sure. Now, that didn't happen. But you saw them question Drake May. Drake May gave an excellent response. So you love to see that out of a player like him. Unfortunately, he's not on the Giants. And then you also seen them question, Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze. I was big on Rome Odunze, man. I love Neighbors, and I said Neighbors should have been the pick from the beginning. But I thought there was a chance that Neighbors would have been picked. And if we had Odunze instead of Neighbors, I still would have been happy. Now, I still love Neighbors more than Odunze in terms of his explosiveness. But Odunze was the complete package, and, he's going to probably ball out in Chicago, especially with whoever else they got over there. But seeing them question Malik Neighbors, and once again, I feel like the coverage of Malik Neighbors ever since he's got brought in, you didn't really see too much on him. And now this isn't a Malik Neighbors documentary, so you're not going to see solely talking about Malik Neighbors. But them simply questioning him, saying, hey, man, what do you do if you're not getting the ball early? And he was honest. He said he's going to be upset. From other people, you might look at that and look at the wide receiver position and think of a guy like Odell Beckham and say, no, you shouldn't have that type of response. But no, he's being honest and saying, yeah, it's going to get under my skin a bit because all week during practice, I'm the focal point trying to get that ball. And we love to hear that because, once again, we haven't had another number one wide receiver like Odell since Odell left. Nobody's really emerged as that top, alpha receiver, commanding and demanding the ball overall. And obviously there's a fine line that you want to stay in between, but Malik Neighbors shows that, hey, it would get under my skin a bit, but it's because I know who I am. I know what we practice on. I know I'm the focal point of this team. I need the ball in my hands. So Daniel Jones apparently really loves Malik Neighbors. Joe Shane said it. Joe Shane spoke to Daniel, and Daniel was really high on Malik Neighbors and would love to have him. So that whole, drama with who's going to throw him the ball and Malik Neighbors is going to chew him out, Daniel Jones is here for it. So we'll see if Daniel Jones lives up to it and hopefully gets him the ball in a timely manner and often enough, to be honest. Now, a couple other tidbits you did see as well. When you talk about what you saw in the combine, they were obviously tracking what happened at the 40-yard dash. Probably one of my best, the things I enjoyed watching in this episode was Joe Shane preparing for the media. And now, once again, we're very critical of Joe Shane when it comes to what he says. But seeing how laid back he is and how they practice before the media comes across, the same way, they practice with players as well. They practice with players. You're in New York. You're going to be talking to the media a lot. You need to make sure you're not saying anything and slipping up with anything. Joe Shane himself practices with it as well, and I really didn't expect it, and he does. Seeing him say to the T the same words he was practicing with that gentleman, I can't remember his name at the moment, but with that gentleman he was practicing with before he went to the podium, and saying word for word what he was practicing, he's not going to leak information he doesn't want to have leaked. He even spoke on, joking around about Saquon's contract and possibly franchise tagging him again. They were saying that franchise tag is something that they could use as a tool, but behind the scenes, he's been saying this whole time, we're not going to franchise tag him again. We're not going to do that. Behind the scenes the whole time, that's what he was saying. But yet to the media and to us, because at one point, you even saw me breaking down some videos and interviews with Joe Shane talking about we could possibly franchise tag him again. That wasn't going to happen. Now, going into the Saquon Barkley situation, we know it. Saquon Barkley's an Eagle. But we also know that Saquon Barkley was apparently trying to be a Giant for life. And everything that's coming out right now is really proven against that. And we knew this was going to happen. Before episode 1 dropped, we live streamed, we talked about it on a video. They were going to make Saquon Barkley look bad. And right now, it's starting to even turn that way a little bit more, especially with that phone call they had with Saquon. And when you start to hear about the numbers and possibly the sneak peek for next week as well, you see those things. Apparently, the reported number, there was a little teaser and I don't know if Joe Shane was referencing if we get him at this number or that we offered this number. But he's pretty much saying $12.5 million a year, 3-year deal, he'll be a Giant again. I don't know if that means that he offered it. I don't know if that's referencing that if they offer that, he'll be a Giant. I'm not really too sure what happened. I do know a year ago that contract was offered around $12 million, and he said no, tried to get more, and ended up getting around the same dollar anyways. So Saquon Barkley does not look good in this situation, but we knew this. Even the way that he sounded when he was talking to Joe Shane. But I really think there's just a little tension between Joe Shane and Saquon, especially after the whole offseason last year. And you got to go through all this year being the number one person on this offense and still going through these negotiations. Simple as, Joe Shane saying, will you give us a shot? And Saquon says, you know where I want to be. He's just not entertaining it like that. So he could have been checked out. I know a lot of people are saying he's been checked out, and he already was. He didn't really want to be a Giant. All that's fair game. Saquon Barkley's not on the Giants anymore. I loved him as a Giant. He's an Eagle now. Whatever y'all want to say about him. And if that is true, so be it, man. I just hope that he does terrible against us twice a year, and hopefully they don't win nothing over there in Philly. But Saquon Barkley will continue to be a topic on Hard Knocks, and you'll see it next week as well. Brian Burns, trade negotiations starting to heat up. Once again, the trade did go through, and we know Brian Burns is on the Giants. But it's interesting that they're saying, they might have to give up 2 2s, and we only gave up a 2nd and a 5th. And now the big thing that's coming out as well is looking at how much they could have really actually went out and signed for Christian Wilkins and possibly not traded anything. I'm still on board for getting Brian Burns. I know what Brian Burns costed. You had to trade a 2, a 5, and you had to sign him to a big deal versus Christian Wilkins. You're just signing him. But I just think about when you think about the player that we needed on the other side of Kayvon, I love to have Brian Burns, and he's going to help Kayvon tremendously. Pairing him up with Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, who I'm speaking of, pairing him up with Dexter Lawrence would have been well, but we really want to see the star potential come out of Kayvon and have a guy that's not going to be, slept on. Brian Burns is going to be the top edge rusher on this team. Kayvon is Kayvon, but Brian Burns is the premier edge rusher. And we know edge rushers, they don't come around often in the NFL. So we do need a player like that. Hopefully Brian Burns plays out well. But once again, Joe Shane, the guy said might need to throw in a 1, might need to be 2 2s. It's a 2nd and a 5th, and it's done. So love to see that from Joe Shane. You're probably going to see it next week because free agency is going to begin next week on that next episode, man. But once again, I loved what I saw. I love what I saw with the interaction with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane. You saw a lot more of Brian Daboll, even joking around about the whole 40-yard dash situation and all those things. I love to see my coach be, featured like that. And hopefully we see a little bit more of Brian Daboll. Once again, out of Joe Shane. You see how laid back he is, and some people might not like that. We're seeing the true character of Joe Shane, and he was even cracking jokes literally all episode. All episode he's cracking jokes and right and left to Brian Daboll. So love what I saw overall. Once again, really dope episode. I love the coverage that we're getting on our team, and especially because everyone's watching this right now. And we know on the outside looking in, the Giants don't look like a well-run organization, but they're taking their steps that they should be. So I'm excited to see what we're going to see next week. We already know who our rookie class is. We know who we drafted. We know who we signed. But once again, just seeing how the whole backside operates in the front office, I love to see that. John Mara, that little snippet of John Mara saying, I really want to see Saquon Barkley back, and Joe Schoen not making that a priority. He really kind of kept him on the outside. And I know you want to please your owner, but Joe Schoen is saying, this is my team. You hired me to run this team. This is my team. I'm not going to make the decision solely because you want that to happen. If it was up to John Mara, we would have Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and probably kept a couple other players because John Mara is very emotionally attached to these players, a lot more than a guy like Joe Schoen is. Joe Schoen didn't draft him, but Joe Schoen saw what happened on the field, and still it did not move him. Now, could that be a blessing or a curse? We're going to find that out, man. I want you guys to let me know down in the comments, man, how you felt about episode 2, ranking on 1 to 10. I'm going to give it a solid 8.5. Solid 8.5. I think it was better than week 1, and I really enjoyed week 1. But I think just the small tidbits of seeing their interactions with the players in the interviews, that sold it for me. And next week with free agency, I wonder how it's going to be when they bring in guys with possibly visits, even interaction with their agents. And we know the Saquon news is going to break next week about him signing with the Eagles and then not giving him a contract or not offering. We'll see. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, man. Stay tuned for more content for sure. Subscribe down below as well. Road to 10K is still active. And I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.